Hello everyone, and welcome to this presentation on the artist Ruth Cuthand and the impacts of her beautiful artwork. I'm going to tell you a bit about her. She was born in 1954 in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, so she is a local artist. Her ancestry is of the Plains Cree, Irish, and Scottish descent. She met the artist Gerald Tailfeathers when she was just 8 years old, and this is what sparked her interest in wanting to become an artist as well. Although she was born in PA, Saskatchewan, she actually grew up near the Blood Reserve in a town called Cardston, which is in Alberta. So, what social issues does her work look at? Her work is all about making art that evokes difficult conversations when it comes to Indigenous issues. She makes these beautiful pieces that address so many subjects of importance revolving around Indigenous communities. Here you can see one of Ruth Cuthand's pieces. This is one of many beadworks she has done of diseases from a microscopic view. This specific beadwork relates directly to what got her into art making. I am going to read a quote of how Cuthand describes how she got into art making, and it will also explain the connection to this piece. She said, "As a child, my first art materials included the orange paper that was discarded in the process of the Polaroid chest x-rays that we were subjected to annually as students in routine tuberculosis screenings. They collected the peculiar smelling 18-inch squares of paper and gave them to the Anglican minister father to use in Sunday school." She continued to say, "Early fascination with disease, First Nations living conditions, and settler/native relationships informed by childhood experience have become key elements in her creative practice, which has encompassed printmaking, painting, drawing, photography, and even beadwork." As she just described, it is apparent that Ruth Cuthand's work derives from a place of fascination, lived experience, and advocacy for Indigenous peoples. I am now going to show a brief video of Cuthand discussing some of the bigger works she has done, to give a bit of an overview of some of the topics she has addressed through her work.
I'm Ruth Cuthand, and I am part of Artist in Focus. There are 5 different kind of areas that I've been working in. One area they have is like really early when I finished my BFA at the university, and that is a series of shirts/dresses that I painted. And that work dealt with a lot of oral storytelling. Then the next series is the trading series, which is beaded viruses. And there's 3 of those. And then I have a series called Boil Water Advisory, which is from a larger work, which was Don't Breathe, Don't Drink. And it's about water on reserves and housing, inadequate housing. And you'll see a picture with 6 viruses in it, and the viruses are beaded. And this is like the artist proof, so the beads are clear. I wanted them to be really subtle. And then the container, the pitcher, is full of resin. One thing I've noticed is I think the work has I think it's held up, which I find really surprising. The work that I did, the drawings of the relationship between the white woman and the Indigenous woman, because the Indigenous woman I drew her smaller, like a doll, and a lot of people see that as referencing residential school, and so there's that same power dynamic as residential schools as the original intent of the work. So I don't mind that people are seeing it in a different context.
The exhibition we are going to look a little deeper at is called Don't Breathe, Don't Drink. As mentioned in the video we just watched, we saw some footage of part of this exhibition called Boil Water Advisory. These are some images of the show in its entirety. When looking closely, these various sized cups and baby bottles look as though they have water in them, and that there is something floating in each. This is exactly what we are supposed to see. Don't breathe, don't drink is a statement about how there were 94 First Nations in Canada at that time that still had boil water advisories. This means that all of the water Indigenous people on those First Nations use have all sorts of bacteria and parasites in it, which adversely affects their health and lives. Today, there are still 59 First Nations communities in Canada that are still under long-term boil water advisories. Taking a closer look at one of the glasses, we can see the beadwork within. This beadwork represents one of the many bacteria or parasites that exist in these First Nations water, and each glass contains its own unique one. Ruth made these by looking at the bacteria and parasites in a microscopic form and then beating them into a visible size. Although the glasses look as though they are filled with water, they are actually filled with resin. Resin is a clear epoxy that can be poured and then will harden into plastic. So, by using resin, Cuthand was able to have each beaded bacteria and parasite as pure as though it is floating in the glass, which creates this powerful image of the dangerous contents of the water. Now I am going to talk about some of the problems with the ongoing water crisis in Indigenous communities. Boil water advisories means that the water should either be boiled or not used/consumed at all because of its real health risks. Here are the problems with this. Number 1. Boiling water excessively leads to mold that deteriorates housing, which causes overcrowding. Number 2. Overcrowding and lack of clean water contributes to the antibiotic-resistant bacteria MSRA, disproportionately affecting Indigenous peoples. Number 3. When your tap water isn't fit, you have to buy water for everything, and this is money that could go towards food. Number 4. During the COVID-19 epidemic, it is essential to be able to wash hands in clean water frequently in order to prevent the contraction and spread of COVID-19. And lastly, we live in a country where having access to clean water should not be up for debate. Indigenous communities not having clean water has been a problem for far too long in Canada, and little has been done in the past many years to fix it. It is so important that artists like Ruth Cuthand create powerful and engaging artworks like Don't Breathe, Don't Drink, to keep bringing awareness to this incredibly important topic. Ruth Cuthand is an artist who creates meaningful work so that we can continue to have the hard conversations and make a difference in our communities. I want to thank you for listening and learning with me. This was a process for myself, and I am glad I could share the information I learned with all of you. So thank you again.